Okay. Let's get rolling here.
Of your kind.
So previously I was using a dungeon manager to try drawing the dungeons. Off stream recently I went in and manually redid how I'm drawing the dungeon for the moment, right? Like, the idea being that we're going to be stepping towards a certain way of handling this thing. One of the things that we have to do is be able to differentiate between different tile types in our dungeon, right? So a dungeon floor is a grid of tiles, right? By default, all tile types are void, and a void tile is just a black tile that you can't move through. However, we can arbitrarily create new, or change tiles, rather. So, as an example of this, for instance, it's an 8x8 right now, right? But so now we have a row of void tiles cutting off the top of the dungeon here. So one of the ideas for having dynamic dungeon floors that can change and move around and do crazy things is that we're going to have to create a map that's much bigger than the actual size of the dungeon inside the map. But what this would allow for us to do is have gameplay similar to NetHack or Sheeran, where the player can start carving into the walls and like uncovering new tiles and a bunch of crazy stuff like that. How are the audio levels? Can y'all hear me fine over the music? Let me check. Remember, monitor and output. Testing. Yeah, that sounds good. Sup, viewers? We got raided the other day, which was kind of crazy. I need to get on earlier in the day to catch those raids. So for instance, like we can call set grid to change an arbitrary tile. So we start off with the top row totally blacked out. Then in theory, we could actually wire a function to a key that would allow us to change an arbitrary tile to another type. Let's do R. So now when we go to build, run this, and actually try it out, when I press R, the tile type should have changed. Set tile type. That's not even the right function, is it? Set tile type. And it does nothing, no wonder. Okay. So we actually don't need set tile type, because it's already handled by set grid. We might go back and change the name of this. Oh, man, I gotta remember to have my mouse on this side. Look at that. So we're able to arbitrarily change the types of tiles in our dungeon now, which can be very useful. We're trying to build something that's ultimately going to be very dynamic and allows for intense procedural gameplay, like procedural generation of dungeons and as many other things as I can handle. In fact, one of the things that I want to experiment with as like a kind of a detail focus is when I load in the textures, I want to play around with like creating like dithering effects on what I read in. This would allow for each one of these tiles to be subtly different, and it would create for a nice effect. So perhaps we can experiment with that like right now. Let's go ahead and check in what we have. Let's see. Oh wait, I'm sorry. I gotta keep this thing up. That way y'all can always see what's currently playing. Okay. Alright. That's good. This is a good start. So in load textures, we call load texture. Given a path name, we do all this stuff.
Shoutouts to YFNet. Shoutouts to everyone who's ever doubted me. You're going down. Killing this shit every single fucking day. If you have a God, son, now is the time to pray. This isn't a game. I don't have to.
Let's think about how to do this.
Listen up closely, son. I have something to say. Sick of these fucking haters acting like they don't know what is up. I'ma bust a move, get into the groove. Gonna show you all what the fuck I'm made of. Motherfuckers come around me acting like they don't know what is up. Get into my brain, gonna feel the pain. Guess what time it is? Time to fuck you up. Hey yo, you ever heard about the evil dojo? I heard that dojo's run by a little kid with a lip though. Walks his little road shrimp sneaking around on a tiptoe when he is stoned in his home, when he is alone, when he's on that rap microphone. Hey yo, put your hands up if you're down with the sick flow. Hey yo, it's Dark Mage and this my evil dojo. Hey yo, looking for some money and some sick hoes. Hey yo, I'll teach you things that I bet you didn't even know. Hey yo, put your hands up if you're down with the sick flow. Hey yo, it's Dark Mage and this my evil dojo. Hey yo, looking for some money and some sick hoes. Hey yo, I'll teach you things that I bet you didn't even know.
You see, President Bush was in a secret society at Yale called the Skull and Bones. His dad was too, and they all worship Satan.
President Bush worships Satan?
In my personal opinion, absolutely.
Welcome to hell post 9/11. One of all terrorists goes straight to heaven. Shit was split the hot straight down to ground zero. Everyone who died was a motherfucking hero. Sorry I get emotional when I talk about this shit, but at the end of the day, George Bush was a bitch, a puppet, a tool, a pawn of war. Took all of our troops on an Afghan tour. Alhamdulillah, I praise the devil, dropping them bombs on straight heavy metal. Lots of people died, but we might have deserved it. The great Satan Lucifer, America's working. Penis funking missile bitches get it to a jerk. And eating carbon much fuck, you need a new merkin. Chopping up your body parts, call me the surgeon. Need a new body or inner cell emerging. Got some loose change, I'll give you the story. Larry Silverstein got all of the glory. Check out the music that came out that day. If God hates us all, then we better fucking pray. Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Taliban, Jihad. The CIA funded the war is fraud. Just as fake as the one true God. Lord of many faces, bitch, show me what you got.
And one of the Skull and Bones initiation rituals is that to get in, you have to lie naked in a coffin and masturbate in front of the older members. But the really messed up thing is that since former President Bush, Bush Sr., was also a member, he requested to be there to watch his son's initiation. So he watched his own son masturbate. President Bush masturbated in front of his dad. Yeah, it's pretty gross.
Hey, baby. Grandma's doggy's right behind me. We might have to step out in a minute to go do some pee-pee. Oh damn, we popping over here. Holy shit. Let's see. Let's get back to custom dithering. See. Cheat sheets. There we go. Okay, so we can get the pixels. We want something to convert from images to textures. Load image from texture. There we are. So this does texture to image, but okay, so we can go back and forth. Is it this easy? It is image dither. And it takes a pointer to an image. So what's the dithering, RBP, and all that? Alright, so let's see if this worked. Hell no. Oops. Okay.
Oh, sorry, I thought your add-on was kids, Bill. For the couples maker? This is good.
Yeah, you can get rid of it now. Seems quite slow, actually. Yeah, so just the
Oh, sorry, I thought your add-on was kids, Bill. For the couples maker? This is good.
yeah, you can get rid of it now. Seems quite slow, actually. Yeah, so just the
Oh, sorry, I thought your add-on was kids, Bill. For the couples maker? This is good.
yeah, you can get rid of it now. Seems quite slow, actually. Yeah, so just the
Damn.
how it all maybe a little purple set. The next thing you know, you have somebody who is more concerned with doing the schoolwork instead of cut off their work assignment. It's great.
Yeah.
How it all,
Uh-oh. Unsupported dither. OpenGL. Oh.
be a little purple.
Unsupported. Okay.
You have somebody who is more concerned with doing the schoolwork so that I don't cut off their work assignment. It's great. How it all, be a little purple. So the next thing you know, you have somebody who is more concerned
Okay, that loaded.
so that I don't cut off their work assignment. It's great.
And it's successfully dithering. Look at that. This is fucking awesome.
Ice cream.
Naturally, the black tile doesn't have anything to see because it's void. This makes me want to make a wood tile immediately.
Concerned with doing the schoolwork so that I don't go off the purpose. And it's great.
Yeah.
Alright, so let's add those to the file.
A Geneva-based non-profit spam filtering organization says it's under the worst terror cyber attack. So strong, it's slowing down internet access globally.
There is no God but God, and Terry A. Davis was his messenger.
You call? Yeah. Wanna suck clothes? Woman's clothes.
I don't know. Have you had experience?
What?
Women's clothes?
What the fuck would I do in women's clothes? You look like a transvestite? I'm not no fucking transvestite.
They'll all reach that hack of shit, spamming already getting lit. Room full of goons, and you know they all be chatting shit. Hack if they joss and get juke on a net split. Bad bitches, pretty feature, them thanks to F-Sound. Got heaters and pumpers, got OGs and newbies. Ask you burning blaster, RUI and RC. Big Rob the sun god, don't know, say red line. Parting on an opera, got no time for busters, hang. Black coast and earthbound, we call that milk net. Spoon with the two made up by the homie P-Rex. Hello.jpg, go C-O-Y-K. Welcome to the chat room, you chatting with some chat apes. And I got me spamming, and I got me spamming, and I got me spamming, pumping these ass keys. And I got me spamming, and I got me spamming, and I got me spamming, pumping these ass keys.
Okay. We wanted to try out these tiles now, right? Hey, look at that. That looks pretty dirty. Look at that. Oh man, that looks good. At some point I'm gonna have to actually make my own sprites. Now we could have multiple dithers. But the problem is correctly maintaining them. Because otherwise it'll look like every tile is shifting randomly if we don't have some sort of like way to lock in which tile we're drawing and where. So we might just leave it as it is for right now. It might be simpler. Alright, so we got some tile dithering done. Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm totally able to. In fact, but I'm not even sure what high is when you talk about it like that, because when I'm able to operate pain-free, I'm usually heavily medicated, and might take a smoke break. That's a good idea. I should have a little text blurb up for that too. See, because I spawned up there and I set it so that you can only move on the stone tiles, it's not going to let us move. So over in gameplay scene. Oh, my baby. Gracie wants some loving. Get over here, honey. There we go. Yeah, stop getting your feet caught in this blanket. Okay. You be in my lap for a little bit. I got a dog in my lap, so if I'm a little bit slow, it's because one hand is petting her. Or two. See, this would be a good position to do tutoring in. Oh. I heard that burp. She's an old baby. She's like 15 years old. She's in good shape for her age. But we both just lost someone really important to us. So we need each other now more than ever. She's such a good baby. Alright, handle dungeon move. So this will only process the move if it's a this will only process if it's a floor basic. So let's refactor this. Fucking you. There we go. Dog in my lap, coffee on my left, keyboard in front of me, my own music playing, broadcasting what I'm doing live to the internet, working towards my dream project. This is all I want right now. This is all I can ask for. Now, this is not my music, but I am a big fan. Shoutouts to B-Rex, aka Beef Carver. Okay, there we go. Now we can move across the dirt floor and the stone floor and the wood floor. What's next? Hey.
She looks me dead in the eye across the Thanksgiving Day table and she goes like this. I sucked a guy's dick with hepatitis. Fucking bringing these fucking beat junkies around with black eyes and fucking busted out teeth and broken noses and band-aids all over their fucking face and cuts on their fucking fingers and fucking stick and poke tattoos and fucking bad out of here with that, man. Eating napkins, eating paper because that's all you have left. Mixing water and paper and drinking.
Tile dithering. I didn't expect to slap that together so easily.
See what else? Having a urinary tract infection for 5 years. One little whip. Nothing. Look.
The message queue. Let's start mocking that up.
Y'all don't even know that. Y'all don't even know that.
So the whole point of the message log, of course, is to display previous actions taken by you, as well as other things in the dungeon that you might be witness to. This is going to be separate from the event queue, which the event, because there might be things happening in the dungeon that you're just straight up not aware of, right? Like, I eventually want to be able to have it so that we properly implement things like sound and vision and a lot of other things like that. So things that are outside of your sphere of perception, you won't get any sort of message indicating something happened. But at the very least, we want to be able to display when the player is moving in a certain direction, when they bump into a wall, a lot of stuff like that. And the message system emerges out of the management of the events. So the events that we essentially have to start handling are all the different actions that can be taken by entities in the dungeon, as well as things that can happen in the dungeon in general. For instance, if an enemy dies and they drop some loot, or if you bump into a wall, or if you bump into another player, or if the player sees something happen, such as a tile change into another tile. There's a lot of actions like this that we're going to have to be able to queue up in a certain order and then process. Because eventually when we're dealing with multiple like entities in the dungeon, each one of them is going to have a turn order that they participate in every turn. So not everything is going to be taking turns in the same order. The player will get certain priority, and the way that we go about handling their turn in relationship to all of the other entities is going to be managed by this system, where instead of immediately moving the player when you press left, right, up, down, or whatever, an event gets generated and placed into a queue. Because every time we dequeue an element from this queue, it's going to be an action that we need to take. How this action is represented is kind of an abstract idea. But it's just going to be an object, a class, just like anything else. It's going to have a type def enum for its type. So the action can be like a movement action or a move entity action. It can be an attack action. You know, all the different things that we're going to be able to do in this dungeon are going to be defined by this type. And for certain actions, they're going to have different parameters. So in essence, we're kind of like creating a meta representation of different functions that we're going to be able to run. So what do we want to call this? Do we want to call it like events or actions or intents or a dungeon action? Oh, that's a lot. I mean, good on Copilot for generating a lot of that for me, but we're not going to deal with a lot of that right now. So we have no action move, and we can also have wait to start with. So let's talk about parameters that we want to pass to a dungeon action when we like actually spawn it. So obviously there's the dungeon action type. So for instance, let's take move. The player or any other entity in the dungeon can execute a move action. So one of the parameters has to be the entity executing the move. We can do entity ID for this. So every dungeon action would have a potential entity ID attached to it as the initiator. There doesn't have to be an initiator. And there doesn't have to be one single target or standard for any of the actions. Each one could have its own standard in theory, so long as we have a uniform way to store the parameters that we pass into it. Because this isn't Python, we can't have like an arbitrary list with different data types inside of it. We have to specify a specific data type. Because in the end, there's going to be an array of dungeon actions, or a vector of dungeon actions, or a queue. And every time an entity wants to participate in the next turn, it's going to be asked for an action. And the player will do things on the keyboard to generate this action, and then it gets queued up, and then once all of the entities have queued up their action, the turn gets processed. We go through the queue one item at a time, handling each one. So when we actually go to process a dungeon action, that code's going to be in somewhere else, and we're going to have to handle each thing that dungeon actions can do. So every time we come up with a new action, there's going to be a workflow of update the class, update the processor, and test that everything still works. So if an entity is moving from one location to another, then we have to at minimum store one entity, potentially. If there's another direct target entity, we would have two items. And I don't foresee a situation where you'd be able to target more than one specific entity, although it should be theoretically possible. We should allow for that level of flexibility. Like, let's say you're able to select multiple targets for a spell, or some other action that affects multiple entities. So there's definitely situations where there might be radial effects, or effects that occur within the radius of an entity. So the entity would be the center of that action. And we'd be able to get the corresponding like dungeon position for that entity just by looking it up in the sprite table. So I guess to start with, we could store an entity ID followed by So for instance, let's take a look at how we're doing moves at the moment. Let's see. So we're actually just passing in the entity ID and the direction. So if it's a move, then we would have at least those two things attached. My baby's getting hungry. Almost time for Dinda and honey. At least this way we wouldn't have to have anything in the destructor. So we need this in our make file before we can do anything with it.
Nothing but an illusion.
Alright, so we're working towards the infrastructure for actually processing events in the dungeon. So that way we can eventually have a real message log we can display. It's time for my dog's Din Din. She's definitely asking for that right now. So we're going to take another break. We'll get something to eat. Then we will get back at it. Let's make sure everything builds. We'll keep playing tunes and we'll keep broadcasting. Alright, everything builds. And I've got some Pringles. Is it just me, or are Pringles like thinner than they used to be? Fucking shrinkflation, man. See what I can get done. Dungeon actions. I want to thank everyone who's still watching. All right. Okay, so we've got this dungeon action constructor now. Okay. Okay. There you go. And it sounds like she's done already. All right. Good job, honey. Hi. Good job. Hi. Good job. Yeah.
Someone with a lot of animals.
All right, sorry for that interruption.
Stressed out because they're worried about reptilians from space who live in tunnels beneath us, who mate with our political leaders and treat these weird bloodlines, control our thoughts from the moon makers. Like, there's somebody in a cubicle right now going, "Goddamn lizards! I'm stuck in there!"
Okay. Chippy too. Alright guys, that's all the chips. I'm literally surrounded by 3 dogs right now. Watch me get some shit done though.
And I watched the videos, I was laughing, and then I read the comments underneath.
No dropped frames on the stream. I'm impressed. Let's see.
Comment after comment of like, thank you for being brave enough to speak the truth.
Alright, so as an example of this, back over in gameplay scene. We're calling this set position, right? We're actually doing handle dungeon move based off of an entity ID and a direction. So here we're directly calling the function anytime you press a certain key on the keyboard. But what we want to happen instead is actually generate a dungeon action and put it into a queue. This dungeon action is going to have player ID and the appropriate vector assigned to it. And then every turn, we're going to process those values. I gave Gracie a chip and she wants more.
Shoutouts to all the chatters. Shoutouts to Zartet for laying it down on the circuit. Shoutouts to B-Rex for hacking my shit up, fam. This is LRH Animal Type Rap Beat number 1. You're sitting down dirty on some funky animal chatters.
Realistically, we should only be able to press one key at a time as far as directions go.
It's a fucking zoo. Humans chatting lines like monkeys swinging poo. Put your hands on the keyboard, you know what to do. I wonder what kind of animal is inside of you. I are motherfucking zoo.
You want some more?
Networks like anemones. All species come together for some nasty. Can flood deep DOS, so they talk shit real nasty. My beats are 0 days, so you know I come out blasting. Dark Mage crab game, do not get them started. Big Bear B-Rex freaking with the Zartet. Don't treat him down, Zar Venom, make it darted. Hate so bad, all bitches even parted. IRC, it's a fucking zoo. Humans chatting lines like monkeys.
Okay.
Put your hands
I need some more coffee in a minute.
I wonder what kind of animal is inside of you. I are motherfucking sea. Get stung by a jellyfish, bust out your beak, claw out your eyes so that you cannot even see how chatting online has animalized me.
Like I said, apologies if I'm a bit slow. This is Grandma's baby is up. I'm gonna be hopping up to give her attention and such. Oh. Alright, let's go. What did we call it? Action queue. Should we call it dungeon action queue? It's kind of a long name. We'll call it action queue. We might be able to facilitate different constructors depending upon the type. So we just have a bunch of overloaded constructors with different parameters that we can pass in. And then handle each one of them separately. Is it not called push? Oh. For some reason it didn't make a an actual object. So this would be 1, 1. This would be 0, -1. This would be 0, 1. This would be -1, 0. And this would be 1, 0. Handle dungeon move. Okay. So at the moment, this would actually create new dungeon actions, push them into a queue, but we're currently not processing the queue, right? So for a moment, let's keep track of how many items are in the queue. Man, my coloring got broken big time. Oh shit. Okay, so we're definitely adding items to the queue. So there's an update that's going to have to occur at a certain point. So the update here correctly positions all the sprites when they get drawn, in case their position on screen changes. Actually, fuck. Every entity might do something different, depending upon what it is that you do. Do we even need a dungeon action, now that I think about it? This was stupid. This might have been a waste of time. God damn it. See, now it's just drawing stuff off screen. Which is honestly probably okay and fine, but an optimization technique would be to limit what we're actually rendering there. I think the text size could be bigger. Doesn't look that crisp at this size. That looks pretty clean, but it's also pretty off screen. Another optimization here would be to only update the HUD when there's some action taken that would change a value on it. Which we could just blind update every time any action's taken, or anytime the turn increments. So we're currently not correctly tracking turn, but we will be soon. We're also gonna have to deal with word wrapping. So like, at the moment I wouldn't be surprised if text ends up off screen. Yeah, see, it's getting cut off. We need a word wrap. Sorry, I had mic muted for that. I'm gonna be getting off here. I've been on for long enough. We've gotten some stuff done. I want to thank everyone for joining. More people than I was expecting. But, you know, that's how it be. Y'all take it easy.